Addiction, more than a substance. Much of the research from this speech has come from Dr. Brozvik's Drugs and Human Behavior class, the material I've been exposed to in class, Dr. Amon's book Unchain Your Brain, as well as some personal struggles with addiction. How do people get hooked on a substance, whether legal or illegal? If people are compared with the vervet monkeys on the island of St. Kitts, it is arguable that people are genetically predisposed to addiction. These monkeys have a genetic history of liking alcohol, and if they're viewed today, they have alcoholic tendencies. If heavy drinking runs in one's genetic background and one's family history, it's possible that that person could develop an addiction to alcohol. Aside from the predisposition, there are various other factors, and most important is brain function. The way we treat our brains determines how our brains will in turn treat us. Everything we consume, whether it be food, beverage, alcohol, legal or illegal drugs, cigarettes, etc., our daily activities, all of that affects our brain, and in turn, that affects how we act. The prefrontal cortex, or the PFC, is our commander-in-chief. When we're young, we don't have a strong PFC. Our brains will learn from experience if they're treated with care at a young age. Parents need to pay attention to this. What they do at home, their own behavior, how they treat or don't treat their children, what they feed their children or don't feed their children, what they do or don't discuss with their children will all affect the strength of the PFC. According to Dr. Amon, adolescents typically have less efficient activity in the PFC because this part of the brain isn't fully developed until the age of 25. Until the age of 25, the brain is undergoing a process called myelinization, in which a protective substance called myelin wraps around the brain's neurons, helping the brain's nerve cells work up to 10 to 100 times more efficiently. If neglected teenagers or teenagers from broken homes start to use drugs to take the edge off, at a young age, they're doing serious harm to themselves. I didn't come from a broken home, but I did start drinking coffee at the age of 13. I started drinking it heavily at the age of 19, when I was away at college. I also started experimenting with tobacco, marijuana, alcohol, and hallucinogens between the ages of 17 and 24. While I sparingly used hallucinogens, I started drinking heavily. Once I turned 21, drinking soon became an addiction. It was just easily accessible. I'd wake up thinking about drinking. I'd wake up thinking about giving up drinking. I'd exhausted a good portion of my funds. Most of my paycheck would go to the bar. A savings account was non-existent. I was frequently late with rent. I also had a few near-death experiences between 2004 and 2010, one of which was a final wake-up call, and luckily not a coffin. In hindsight, if I ate healthier and exercised more as a child than a preteen, my addictions would have not kicked into full gear. I often raided the refrigerator and the pantry for the sweetest snacks after school. When I was younger, my metabolism helped me maintain the weight. I was quite an active child, but my emotions ran my life. It got to the point where I wouldn't even fight cravings, letting my limbic system and basal ganglia completely take over. I had no supervisor. Now I do because I exercise and eat healthier, and I don't binge drink. While drinking heavily, I religiously followed Dr. Amon's 4 C's: craving, compulsion, loss of control, and continued use in spite of consequences. This helps people understand continued use and relapse. It's never too late to get sober, but it's tough for an addict to resist a relapse. Heroin addicts suffer a rough withdrawal, making them feel very sick, so they continue to use in spite of consequences, even when they've exhausted everything. Meth addicts experience extreme depression once they've beaten withdrawal because meth gave them such a dopamine rush that it becomes so salient to the brain in terms of pleasure. One recovered meth addict that we studied in Dr. Brozvik's class mentioned that it takes the brain 6 months to a year to generate dopamine on its own. So she relapsed a couple times before eventually finding herself in a halfway house and reaching sobriety. Drugs play with dopamine, serotonin, GABA, and endorphins, chemicals in the brain you don't want to mess with. So, to maintain healthy brain function, there are ways to get these natural highs. Healthy eating, avoiding fast food, foods high in fat and sugar, limit those foods. Eat fruits, vegetables, drink green tea, but limit caffeine and exercise. This will keep dopamine levels healthy, allowing one to stay focused. Exercise and rigorous activity definitely enhances dopamine. Exercise allows one tryptophan to get to the brain faster than other proteins, allowing healthier serotonin levels. Consuming food and drink that's high in glutamic acid, such as raw spinach, oats, green tea, lentils, as well as magnesium and B vitamin supplements, those will help healthy GABA function. Eating a small amount of chocolate every day to bring your brain natural pleasure. According to Dr. Raymond, cocoa has been shown to increase endorphin production in the brain. Engage in healthy activities such as exercise, learning a musical instrument, or even education. Going to school for something that one is passionate about increases healthy brain activity, especially when the person applies it his or herself. It's okay to be hooked on healthy brain activities, as long as it keeps the person distracted from the relapse. The methadone program keeps heroin addicts addicted because it offers one solution, not considering the person's psychological addiction. If an addict makes it through withdrawal cold turkey, he has to deal with the cravings and the depression. But during an inpatient rehab, he should be forced to stimulate healthy brain function with proper diet and exercise. Rehabilitation needs to be a process where a person learns his or her brain and how to take control of it, not simply a place where people go and get one drug to replace the other. To be proactive, parents need to consider their own behaviors and how they affect their children. Make sure to have that conversation about drugs and alcohol and include inhalants in that conversation. Make sure you have this conversation before they reach the experimental age that most adolescents reach. Rather than drugs or alcohol, a teenager may get hooked on playing sports, academics, making music, dating, all activities that promote healthy brain function, just so long as no serious head injuries are sustained in the process. Give them the tools to have a healthy brain so that by the time the myelin is fully developed, they have a strong prefrontal cortex and they are a strong supervisor.